The view screen showed another world ready to fall. High Commander Ralph watched the blue and green planet rotate slowly below his fleet. New Perth, the humans called it, a farming colony with 200,000 people growing food for other settlements. Nothing special, nothing worth fighting for. Ralph had done this 311 times before. The pattern never changed. His fleet would arrive, broadcast their power, and the planet would surrender. Sometimes within hours, never longer than a day. 3 centuries of expansion and the Dominion of Arath had never fought a real battle. They did not need to. Fear was more effective than weapons. "Begin the demonstration," Ralph ordered. His weapons officer activated the main cannon. A beam of pure energy lanced down toward the ocean, vaporizing a cubic mile of water in an instant. Steam rose in massive clouds. The message was clear. Submit, or this happens to your cities. Broadcast standard terms, Ralph said. 4 hours to respond. First Officer Dren worked the communications panel. He had served with Ralph for 40 years. 40 years of watching worlds kneel without a fight. Sometimes Dren wondered if they had grown soft, accepting surrender instead of testing themselves. He pushed the thought away. Victory was victory. The broadcast went out in all frequencies. Surrender, join the Dominion, your lives continue unchanged. Refuse and everything ends, simple, clean, effective. Then something unexpected happened. A ship moved between the Dominion fleet and the planet. Just one ship. A human frigate perhaps a quarter the size of Ralph's smallest cruiser. It took position directly in the fleet's path and stopped. Interesting, Ralph said. He magnified the image. The ship was old but well maintained. Weapon ports lined its hull. Shields flickered at standard strength. Scan it. Frigate class, the sensor officer reported. UNSC Defiant, crew of 140, standard missile loadout, point defense systems, nothing remarkable. Ralph nodded. He had seen Defiance before. Small gestures of pride before reality forced submission. This ship would move aside when the deadline passed. They always did. 4 hours went by. The Defiant did not move. Dren checked the scanners again. Commander, the planet is evacuating. They are loading civilian transports. How long will full evacuation take? At their current rate, approximately 4 days. Ralph understood now. The frigate was buying time. A noble gesture, but ultimately pointless. His fleet could destroy that ship in minutes. Then the transports would have nowhere to run. Open a channel to their captain, Ralph ordered. The view screen changed. A human appeared. He wore a dark blue uniform with captain's insignia. His face was weathered, his hair gray at the temples. He looked tired but calm. I am High Commander Ralph of the Dominion. You are blocking our approach. Move aside and your ship will be spared. The human captain studied Ralph for a moment. I am Captain Owen Bradley of the UNSC Defiant, and no, I do not think we will move. Your ship cannot stop us, you must see that. I see 12 warships against 1 frigate, Bradley said. Mathematics was never my strongest subject, but even I can work out those odds. Then why do you stay? Because those are my people down there. Farmers, teachers, children, they need time to get away, so here we sit. Ralph felt a flicker of something he had not experienced in decades. Confusion. This human knew he would lose, knew his ship would be destroyed, yet he stayed anyway. You would die for people you can protect only for a few hours. A few hours means a few thousand more get away, Bradley replied. Seems like a fair trade to me. Dren watched the exchange with growing interest. In 40 years, he had never heard anyone speak to Ralph this way. The human showed no fear, no anger, just calm acceptance of what was coming. I will give you one more chance, Ralph said. Move your ship or I will move it for you. You want this world, you go through us first. Bradley's expression did not change. We will be right here. The transmission ended. Silence filled the bridge. Officers looked at each other uncertainly. The pattern had broken. This was not how it worked. Commander, Dren asked carefully, orders. Ralph considered. He could destroy the Defiant easily. But something made him hesitate. This human was not posturing. He meant every word. He truly intended to die here, alone against impossible odds for a few hours of time. The Dominion had conquered hundreds of species. None had shown this kind of determination. What kind of people would sacrifice themselves so readily? Research human military history, Ralph ordered. I want to know what we are dealing with. Sir, we have their surrender in 4 hours. Why waste time with research? Ralph looked at the defiant holding position between his fleet and New Perth. One small ship that should have run. One captain who should have been terrified. Neither had followed the pattern. Because, Ralph said slowly, I have never encountered a species that chooses certain death over uncertain survival. Find out why. The tactical officer began pulling up human databases. Within minutes, his expression changed from confidence to concern. Commander, you should see this. The humans have fought wars among themselves for thousands of years. Continuous warfare. Their entire civilization is built around conflict. Ralph felt something cold settle in his chest. 300 years of expansion, and they had never encountered a warrior species. Only peaceful civilizations that valued survival over resistance. On the view screen, the Defiant remained motionless, waiting, not running, not surrendering. Just waiting. For the first time in his long career, High Commander Ralph wondered if 4 hours would be enough. Commander Tesh stared at his console in growing disbelief. As the Dominion's chief tactical analyst, he had been ordered to study human warfare. What he found made no sense. Humans fought each other constantly. Not just wars, but the way they thought about war. They had terms for concepts Tesh had never encountered: acceptable losses, strategic retreat, Pyrrhic victory, last stand, scorched earth. They have entire schools dedicated to studying how to kill each other more effectively, Tesh said aloud. Nobody answered. His staff was equally absorbed in the data. The Dominion won through intimidation. Show overwhelming force. Accept surrender. Move to the next world. In 3 centuries, they had fired their weapons perhaps a dozen times, always at empty targets. Demonstrations. Humans had been fighting real wars since before they left their homeworld. Wars that killed millions. Wars that lasted years. Wars they kept fighting even when victory seemed impossible. Tesh found a historical record labeled World War II. He read the summary. 60 million dead. Entire cities burned to ash. Nations throwing everything they had into total warfare for 6 straight years. And the humans kept detailed records of it all. Battle tactics, strategic mistakes, weapons development. They studied their failures to avoid repeating them. First Officer Dren needs to see. This, Tesh muttered. Across the void, Captain Bradley walked the corridors of the Defiant. His crew worked with quiet efficiency. They knew what was coming. Everyone knew. Lieutenant Amy Walsh met him at the weapons bay. She was young, only 26, but sharp as broken glass. Her tactical projections had saved the Defiant twice before. How long can we last? Bradley asked. If they come at us with everything, maybe 10 minutes. If they are cautious, we might stretch it to an hour. Walsh pulled up a hologram. Our best bet is making them nervous. They outgun us, but we are faster. Hit and run tactics, make every shot hurt. Can we take one of their ships with us? Walsh studied the projection. Maybe, if we get lucky and they make mistakes. But sir, they have never fought before. They probably will make mistakes. Bradley nodded. Down on New Perth, evacuation transports were loading families. Every hour bought thousands more lives saved. If the Defiant could hold for even half a day, 40,000 people would reach safety. Load everything we have, Bradley said. Missiles, railgun slugs, even the emergency flares. If it can explode, I want it ready. Aye, sir. Bradley returned to the bridge. Through the view screen, he could see the massive Dominion flagship. Eternal Victory, they called it. 15 times the Defiant's mass. Weapons that could crack a moon. His communications officer looked up. Sir, incoming transmission, text only, from someone called First Officer Dren. Put it through. Words appeared on Bradley's personal screen. Captain Bradley, I have read your history. I do not understand why you fight when you cannot win. Bradley typed a response, because winning is not the point. Protecting my people is the point. A pause, then you will die here. Bradley smiled grimly, probably, but every minute I live, more of them escape. That is worth dying for. Another pause, longer this time. We have never encountered thinking like this. The Dominion conquers through strength. You face us with weakness and call it strategy. Bradley considered his words carefully. Strength is not about size or firepower. Strength is doing what needs to be done, even when it costs everything. The response came back quickly. That is not strength, that is insanity. Call it what you want, we call it duty. No further messages came. Bradley closed the channel and looked at his bridge crew. They were scared, he could see it in their faces, but not one of them had asked to leave. Not one had suggested running. Status on evacuation? Bradley asked. 15% complete, sir. Another transport just cleared the gravity well. 15%, 30,000 people safe, 170,000 still at risk. The 4-hour deadline expired. On the Eternal Victory, High Commander Routh reviewed Tesh's findings. The data was overwhelming. Humans did not just fight. They had made warfare into an art form, tactics refined over millennia, strategies tested in blood. They know we are stronger, Dren said quietly, but they are fighting anyway. Then we will show them the futility of resistance, Routh replied, but his voice lacked conviction. He opened a channel to 3 of his cruisers. Move forward, push that ship aside, do not destroy it, just disable their engines and move them out of our path. 3 massive warships advanced. Each one could destroy the Defiant easily. Together they were unstoppable. The Defiant did not retreat, did not turn away. Bradley opened all frequencies. His voice broadcast to every ship in the system and through hyperspace relays to watching stations beyond. To anyone listening, I am Captain Owen Bradley. My ship cannot win this fight, we know that. But those people down there deserve a chance to live free, so we will hold this line until we cannot hold it anymore. Maybe that is an hour, maybe that is 10 minutes, but we will hold. Across the galaxy, on worlds conquered decades ago, people listened. They heard a voice they had not heard in generations, the voice of defiance. The 3 Dominion cruisers closed to weapons range, their targeting systems locked onto the Defiant. Bradley looked at his crew one last time. All hands, battle stations, engine room, give me everything she has got. Walsh armed every weapon system. Missiles ready, railguns charged, point defense active. Good, Bradley gripped his command chair. The Dominion ships were 5,000 meters away, close enough. Lieutenant Walsh, warm up the main engines. Sir. Bradley smiled. We are going to teach them what ramming speed means. The Defiant accelerated directly toward the 3 Dominion cruisers. Bradley counted down silently. 3,000 meters, 2,000, 1,500. Now, he shouted. The ship rolled hard to starboard, main engines firing at maximum. Burn, instead of ramming the center cruiser, the Defiant whipped between 2 of the massive ships, so close their shields sparked against each other. Fire everything. Missiles streaked out at point-blank range. Railgun slugs tore into unshielded hull sections. The Defiant was inside the Dominion's defensive perimeter, too close for their main weapons to target effectively. The cruiser on the left shuddered as explosions rippled across its engine section. Warning klaxons blared. The massive ship began listing to one side, main drive sputtering. But the Defiant paid for the attack. Return fire caught her stern, hull plating peeled away. Atmosphere vented from 3 compartments. 20 crew members died in an instant. Damage report, Bradley called. Hull breach on decks 4 and 5. Starboard engine down, port engine at 60%, shields holding at 40%. Walsh's voice stayed level despite the chaos. In engineering, Robert Lynn watched coolant leak from a cracked pipe. The repair manual said to shut down the reactor and fix it properly. Lynn grabbed a welding torch and sealed it while the reactor was still hot. The manual could go to hell. Bridge, this is engineering. I'm holding things together with tape and prayers down here, but we are still flying. Keep her together as long as you can, Robert. The 3 Dominion cruisers regrouped. One was damaged but still combat-capable. The other 2 were angry. On the Eternal Victory, Routh stared at the tactical display. The human ship should have been destroyed. Instead, it had crippled one of his cruisers and was maneuvering for another attack. All ships engage that frigate. I want it disabled now. 8 more Dominion warships moved forward. The Defiant was surrounded, outgunned, and dying, but it kept fighting. Bradley ran a guerrilla battle across 3,000 kilometers of space. The Defiant would dart in, fire a salvo, then burn away before the Dominion could coordinate their response. Hit and run, strike and fade. Every exchange cost the Defiant more damage. Hull breaches multiplied. Systems failed, crew members fell. But with each attack, another Dominion ship took damage. The invincible fleet was bleeding. Hours passed. The Defiant looked like a wreck held together by determination. Life support was failing. Half the weapons were offline. The crew worked in sealed suits as atmosphere leaked into space. But they held the line. Dr. Nina Ockhaffer watched from New Perth's orbital station. Evacuation was at 40% now. 80,000 people safe because one ship refused to move. She opened a channel to the Defiant. Captain Bradley, this is Dr. Ockhaffer. We see what you are doing up there. Every person on these transports owes you their lives. Bradley's face appeared on her screen. He looked exhausted. Blood matted his hair from a head wound, but his eyes were clear. Just keep those transports moving, Doctor. We will keep them busy. On the Eternal Victory, First Officer Dren watched the battle with something like awe. The human ship was dying, but it fought like a cornered predator. Vicious, unpredictable, effective. Commander, we have reports coming in from across the Dominion. Other conquered worlds are watching this battle. Some are broadcasting it openly. Routh felt cold dread. This was supposed to be a demonstration of Dominion power. Instead, it showed the Dominion struggling against a single outdated frigate. Jam all transmissions. Nothing gets out. Too late, sir. The battle has been streaming for 6 hours. Half the galaxy has seen it by now. Young Officer Kalen worked his sensor station and watched the readouts. The Dominion fleet had taken more damage in 6 hours than in the previous 3 centuries combined, and the humans kept coming. This was not how conquest was supposed to work. Where was the surrender? Where was the fear? The Defiant made another run. This time, Dominion gunners were ready. Focused fire caught the frigate broadside, armor exploded, the ship spun out of control. "We are hit bad," Walsh shouted. "Port engine gone, starboard engine critical, hull integrity at 12%. Bradley pulled himself up from where the impact had thrown him. His arm hung at an odd angle. Broken. He ignored it. "Can we still fight?" "We have 4 missiles left, and 1 railgun still functional." "Then we fight." Chief Medical Officer Paul Grant worked in what used to be the medical bay. Now it was a section open to vacuum. He wore a pressure suit and treated wounded crew members who were also suited up. The ship was dying around them, but Grant kept working. Every life he saved was a victory. The Defiant limped forward, listing badly. It looked like debris. The Dominion fleet moved in for the kill. Then new signatures appeared on every scanner. Hyperspace ruptures, multiple. Ships dropping into normal space. 7 human warships emerged from faster-than-light travel. They were not as large as Dominion vessels, but they were fresh and undamaged, and they positioned themselves around the crippled Defiant like a protective wall. Admiral Rebecca Stone's voice broadcast on all frequencies. "This is the UNSC Relief Fleet. You wanted to see what humans do when you threaten our people. Now you are going to learn." Bradley allowed himself a tired smile. The defiant sacrifice had bought enough time. Now the real fight would begin. Ralph watched 7 new contacts appear on his tactical display. His fleet was still larger, still stronger. But these humans would fight like the Defiant had fought. They would make every meter cost blood and metal. For the first time in 300 years, the Dominion faced a real war, and Ralph was not sure they knew how to fight one. Admiral Rebecca Stone studied the tactical display from her flagship, the UNSC Valiant. 8 human ships against 11 Dominion vessels. Not great odds, but her people had faced worse. More importantly, she had been analyzing the Defiant's engagement for the past 6 hours. Captain Bradley had exposed critical weaknesses in Dominion doctrine. They fought like they were still intimidating primitives, not engaging a real military force. All ships deploy pattern Sigma, electronic warfare active, missile boats prepare spread formation. The human fleet split into 3 groups. The Dominion expected traditional battle lines. Instead, the humans scattered across 1,000 cubic kilometers, forcing the enemy to divide their attention. Target their sensor arrays first, Stone ordered. Blind them. Guided missiles launched, each one following an erratic path. The Dominion point defense systems tried to track them but kept losing lock. The missiles were using electronic warfare packages, spoofing sensors, creating false targets. Half the missiles were decoys. The other half carried shaped charges designed to disable sensors without destroying the ships. Stone wanted the Dominion confused, not dead. A confused enemy made mistakes. 3 Dominion cruisers suddenly found their long-range scanners offline. They could still see, but not clearly, not at distance. Ralph watched his tactical advantage erode. What are they doing? This is not how fleet combat works. Dren wanted to say that maybe Ralph did not actually know how fleet combat worked, since the Dominion had never fought a real battle. He kept the thought to himself. They are using unconventional tactics. Our doctrine does not account for this. Then adapt the doctrine. Sir, our doctrine is based on 3 centuries of unopposed conquest. We have no experience with adaptive warfare. The human ships moved like sharks, coordinated but unpredictable. They would converge on a single Dominion vessel, hammer it with fire, then scatter before the rest of the fleet could respond. It was frustrating, chaotic, and effective. On the Defiant, medics transferred Captain Bradley to a human medical ship. He fought them the whole way. I need to stay with my ship. Your ship is a floating wreck, sir, Chief Grant said firmly. And you have a concussion, broken arm, and 3 cracked ribs. You have done enough. Bradley looked back at the Defiant one last time. The old frigate drifted, dead in space but still whole, still there. It had done its job. Make sure they remember her, Bradley said quietly. Sir, the whole galaxy watched what you did. They will remember. Across Dominion space, the battle broadcast continued despite jamming attempts. On conquered worlds, beings watched in silence as the humans fought. On a world called Tarim, resistance leader Alan gathered his people in secret. They had been conquered 40 years ago. 40 years of occupation, of bowing to Dominion authority. You see, Alan said, pointing at the screen. 1 human ship held against their entire fleet, and now more humans have come. The Dominion is not invincible. Similar conversations happened on a dozen worlds. The seed of rebellion, planted by the Defiant stand, began to grow. The battle at New Perth continued for hours. The human fleet could not drive the Dominion away, but the Dominion could not break through the human defensive perimeter. Stalemate. Captain Diana Reeves commanded the destroyer Relentless. She had studied Dominion tactics obsessively since the war started. Now she put that knowledge to use. They rely on shield strength, she told her crew. Hit them with sustained fire on the same point. Eventually the shields will fail. The Relentless focused all its firepower on a single Dominion cruiser. Railgun fire hammered the same section of shielding again and again. The shields held for minutes, then began to flicker. Keep firing, The shields collapsed, railgun slugs tore into the hull. The Dominion cruiser broke formation, retreating to make emergency repairs. On the Eternal Victory, damage reports flooded in. 3 ships with shield failures, 2 with engine damage, 1 unable to fire its main weapons, and the humans had barely taken casualties. Young Officer Kalen accessed the ship's historical database during a quiet moment. He found records from the early Dominion conquests, files that were restricted but not deleted. What he read made him feel sick. The first worlds the Dominion conquered did not surrender peacefully. They fought. They resisted. The Dominion crushed them brutally, then erased the records and spread the myth of peaceful expansion. The current Dominion military had never seen those records. They believed their own propaganda about conquest through superior civilization. Kalen copied the files to a secure drive. People needed to know the truth. "Commander," Dren said carefully, "we are at an impasse. We cannot advance without taking severe losses. The humans cannot drive us away without reinforcements." Ralph knew Dren was right. This should have been over in hours. Instead, they had been fighting for nearly a full day, and the humans showed no signs of breaking. Status of the evacuation: 90% complete. Most of the population has escaped. 90%. The humans had won, not militarily, but strategically. They had saved their people. "New contacts," the sensor officer shouted. "Multiple hyperspace signatures, big ones." Ralph felt his stomach drop. More human ships. If this was another fleet, the Dominion would be outnumbered. But the signatures were different. These were not human. These were from conquered worlds. 12 ships emerged from hyperspace. They were old, poorly armed, nothing that could threaten the Dominion fleet. But they positioned themselves near the human ships and broadcast a simple message. "This is the free vessel liberation from Tarim. We saw what the humans did. We saw them fight for their people. We are done kneeling to the Dominion. Other free ships join us." More ships arrived. 20, 30, vessels from a dozen conquered species, all coming to support the humans who had shown them that resistance was possible. Ralph stared at the tactical display in horror. The battle at New Perth had sparked rebellions across Dominion space. The Empire was fracturing, and it had started with one ship that refused to move. Supreme Leader Mactos sat in his chamber on the Dominion homeworld and watched his empire collapse in real time. Reports flooded in from across controlled space. 17 worlds in open rebellion. 23 more showing signs of unrest. Ships deserting. Governors requesting emergency military support. All because one human frigate refused to run. "Get me High Commander Ralph," Mactos ordered. The communication took minutes to establish. When Ralph's face appeared, Mactos saw something he had never seen in a Dominion officer before: doubt. "Explain this disaster," Mactos demanded. "Supreme Leader, the humans fight differently than anything we have encountered. They do not fear death. They use it as a weapon." "Then kill them all. Destroy their planet. Make an example that will terrify the rest of the galaxy back into submission." Ralph hesitated. That hesitation told Mactos everything he needed to know. His commander had lost faith. "Do it now, or I will find someone who will." The transmission ended. Ralph sat in silence, staring at the tactical display. New Perth hung there, defenseless now that 90% of its population had evacuated. He could destroy it easily. The human fleet would try to stop him, but his ships could push through. But what then? More rebellions, more resistance. The galaxy had seen humans willing to die for their people. If the Dominion slaughtered an entire planet in response, it would prove the humans were right to resist. "First Officer Dren, personal channel, please." When they were alone, Ralph asked the question that had been burning in his mind for hours. What if we are the villains in this story? Dren had been thinking the same thing. Our empire was built on fear. We told ourselves it was for peace, for stability, but we never asked the conquered worlds if they wanted our peace. 300 years of expansion, and we never questioned it. Because we never had to? Dren pulled up the files Kalen had discovered. I found these in the restricted archives. Our early conquests were not peaceful, we were brutal. Then we buried the truth and told ourselves we were civilized. Routh read the records with growing shame. Orbital bombardments, forced relocations, species driven to extinction for resisting, all hidden under layers of official denial. We are not the civilization we claim to be. No, Dren. Agreed, we are conquerors who got comfortable. On Earth, the military command center buzzed with activity. Fleet Admiral Marcus Okonkwo reviewed the strategic situation. New Perth was holding, but barely. More forces were needed. How fast can we get the main battle fleet there? 3 weeks at maximum burn. Make it 2. I want every ship we can spare heading to New Perth. The Dominion is off balance. Time to push. Okonkwo studied the intelligence reports. Rebellions across Dominion space. Their fleet divided, trying to hold multiple systems. The Empire was overextended and panicking. This is not about conquering the Dominion, Okonkwo said. This is about giving enslaved worlds the chance to free themselves. His staff began coordinating with resistance groups across dozens of worlds. Supplying them with weapons would come later. Right now, they needed information and encouragement. On Tarim, Alan's resistance broadcast continuously. The Dominion is weakest at their supply depots. Hit them there. Do not fight their warships. Cut their logistics. Make them choose between holding us down and fighting the humans. Other resistance leaders shared tactics. Peaceful protest on some worlds. Sabotage on others. Each group adapted to their situation, but all coordinated toward the same goal. Freedom. Young Officer Kalen made his choice during the night shift. He copied the restricted files onto a data chip, walked to the communications station, and broadcast them across the Dominion fleet. Every ship received the truth, the brutal early conquests, the lies, the propaganda. Within hours, junior officers across the fleet were questioning their purpose. Some remained loyal to Mactos. Others could not reconcile what they learned with what they believed. The Dominion military began to fracture. Routh received an emergency transmission from Supreme Leader Mactos. The order was clear. Destroy New Perth and the human fleet. No negotiation, no mercy. Make the galaxy remember why they feared the Dominion. Routh looked at First Officer Dren. If I follow this order, we become the monsters the humans think we are. If I refuse, I commit treason. Perhaps, Dren said carefully, there is a third option. What if we prove the humans wrong, show them we can change? Before Routh could respond, sensors detected a massive hyperspace signature. This was not a few resistance ships. This was a fleet. 40. Human warships emerged from faster-than-light travel. Earth's main battle fleet had arrived early, cutting their travel time by pushing engines past safe limits. Fleet Admiral Okonkwo broadcast on all frequencies. Dominion forces, this is Admiral Okonkwo of the United Nations Space Command. You have been fighting for an empire built on lies. Your own officers are sharing the truth with you now. You can continue fighting for a system that enslaves billions, or you can choose a different path. Across the Dominion fleet, officers looked at each other. Some prepared weapons, others hesitated. Kalen stood at his post and made a decision. He shut down his cruiser's weapon systems. What are you doing? His commanding officer demanded. Something I should have done years ago. I will not fight for this empire anymore. 3 other officers on the bridge stood with him, then 5 more. The commanding officer looked around and realized he was alone. Similar scenes played out across multiple Dominion ships. The Empire's military was splitting apart, divided between those who clung to the old ways and those who wanted something different. Routh watched his fleet fracture and knew the moment had come. He could fight the humans and probably lose. Fight his own people and definitely lose, or try something the Dominion had never done before. He opened a channel to Admiral Okonkwo. This is High Commander Routh. I request a ceasefire to discuss terms. Okonkwo smiled grimly. Accepted, let us talk. The negotiations took place on neutral ground. A space station abandoned decades ago, now repurposed as a meeting place. High Commander Routh arrived with First Officer Dren and a small security team. Admiral Okonkwo brought Captain Bradley, still recovering from his injuries, and several advisors. They met in a conference room with windows overlooking New Perth. The planet glowed peacefully below, unaware of the decisions being made above. Before we begin, Okonkwo said, I want to be clear about something. We did not come here to destroy the Dominion. We came to protect our people. What happens to your empire is your choice. Routh appreciated the directness. The empire is already destroyed. Rebellions on 40 worlds now. Our military is split between loyalists and reformers. Supreme Leader Maktos has ordered my execution for treason. Then why are you here? Because you were right, Routh gestured. Toward the planet below. We built our empire on fear and called it peace. One of your ships proved that was a lie. Now we must deal with the truth. Bradley spoke for the first time. His arm was in a cast and bandages covered half his face. What truth is that? That we are not superior, we are not civilized, we are bullies who never got punched back. Routh met Bradley's eyes. Until you punched back. Elder Counselor Shem entered the room. He represented Tarim, one of the first worlds the Dominion conquered. His species had been under Dominion control for 2 centuries. I speak for 37 liberated worlds, Shem said. We do not want revenge, we want freedom, we want to build our own futures. Okonkwo nodded. That is reasonable. The UNSC supports self-determination. What about the Dominion worlds themselves? Dren asked. Not the conquered territories, but the core systems. What happens to us? That depends, Okonkwo replied. Are you willing to change, really change, not just pretend? Routh pulled out a data pad. These are proposals from reform-minded officers. Dissolve the empire. Establish a council of independent worlds. The Dominion becomes just another member, not the ruler. You would give up 3 centuries of power. We would give up 3 centuries of lies. Routh looked tired. I have spent my entire career conquering worlds without understanding why. Now I know there was no why, just because we could. The negotiations continued for hours. Terms were drafted, revised, debated. The Dominion would release all conquered territories immediately. War reparations would be paid to help rebuild. A galactic council would form to prevent any single power from dominating others. It was messy, it was complicated, but it was fair. While the leaders talked, something else happened across the galaxy. Dominion loyalists who refused to accept change gathered their forces. Supreme Leader Maktos rallied 12 ships still loyal to the old ways. If the Empire falls, it will fall fighting, Maktos declared. His fleet attacked Tarim, seeking to crush the rebellion there and restore fear. They found human ships waiting for them, not many but enough. The battle was brief and brutal. Maktos fought with desperate fury, but his crews had never experienced real combat. The human captains had trained for war their entire careers. 5 Dominion loyalist ships surrendered. 4 were destroyed. Maktos died when his flagship exploded, refusing to retreat even when the battle was lost. The death of the Supreme Leader ended the Old Dominion. The empire that had ruled through fear for 300 years collapsed not to conquest, but to its own weight. 6 months later, Captain Owen Bradley stood on New Perth watching colonists rebuild. The evacuated population had returned, bringing new settlers with them. The farming colony was growing into something larger. Admiral Stone joined him. How is the arm? Healed mostly. Bradley flexed his hand. Doctors say I should not have full mobility, but I am stubborn. So I noticed. Stone looked at the settlement. You know they are calling what you did the Defiant Stand. It is spreading across the galaxy. 30 different species have ships named Defiant now. I just did what needed doing. You changed the galaxy, Owen. One ship against a fleet, and you won by refusing to lose. The first meeting of the Galactic Council was held in neutral space. Representatives from 127 worlds attended. Humans, former Dominion Core worlders, liberated territories and species that had never been conquered at all. Elder Counselor Shem opened the proceedings. For centuries, we believed resistance was impossible. One human crew proved otherwise. They showed us that freedom is always worth fighting for. The Council established basic principles. No forced expansion, no conquest. Disputes settled through negotiation, not warfare. It was idealistic, and everyone knew some would break the rules. But at least there were rules now. High Commander Ralph, now just Ralph, attended as a representative of his homeworld. He spoke briefly. My people committed terrible crimes in the name of peace. We owe debts we can never fully repay, but we can try, we can be better. The galaxy would hold him to that promise. The wreck of the Defiant was recovered and preserved. Too damaged to repair, it became a memorial. Beings from hundreds of worlds visited it, seeing the scarred hull, the burned corridors, the bridge where Bradley and his crew had made their stand. A plaque was installed near the airlock. It read simply, they stood between tyranny and freedom. When asked to move, they refused. When told they would die, they accepted the cost. 140 crew members bought time for 200,000 strangers to escape. This is the price of liberty. This is the meaning of courage. Bradley visited the memorial once. He walked the empty corridors, remembering 20 crew members had died in the battle, 20 people he had led into certain death. Lieutenant Walsh found him in the ruined engine room. They volunteered, sir, every single one of them. I know does not make it easier. It should not be easy. The day it becomes easy, we become like them. Bradley nodded. Outside, the galaxy was learning to live without empires. It was messy and loud and full of arguments, but it was free. One ship had started it all by refusing to move. One crew willing to die so others could live. That was enough.